I will tell you folks who's out there listening that, and I'm going to do a reel on this, Katrina Scarborough was at one of the people that were speaking, and she was saying how important it is when you get your trim notice for your taxes in August. That is your moment. If you have a discrepancy, you want to complain, you need to call her down at the office, because once that November bill comes out, it's done.
That's it. Welcome to another episode of Discover St. Cloud, Florida. I'm Kristin Macari, and I'm here with your host,
Jeanine Corcoran, broker for Corcoran Connect, a real estate company.
It is time for our January market report, right?
Time's going by so fast. Here we are, second week in February already.
I know, I can't believe it. Hey, it's almost rodeo day.
I know. I'm going to be out of town for rodeo day. It's the first one I've ever missed in, I don't know, 15 years.
I know. You've been going for a long time, and, you know, like you used to take Olivia every year.
Took AJ last year for the first time, but I'll be missing it.
Yep. It's always a fun time for kids in Osceola County, though, to have a different day off than everybody else. So, you know, it's a lot of fun.
For those of you who might be watching this who aren't from St. Cloud, Florida, or Kissimmee, or Central Florida, in Osceola County, our students get off for rodeo day. They do not get off for President's Day, right?
Right. And we had a great episode about that a couple years ago.
We did.
So with that, let's go ahead and kick off what happened in January in 34769.
So in 34769, we had 17 homes that sold. Of those 17, 14 of them were really? Okay, I'm just going to keep going. 14 of them were single stories at $231.86 price per square foot, and 3 were 2 stories at $162.21.
And so your month-over-month averages are actually down just about 2%. And then year-over-year, you're down about 6.2%. So we are seeing some softening in the 34769 area. Your current median days to contract is 57, and median days to close is 91. So that's even a little bit longer than it has been in 34769.
How many do we have on the market?
So we've got about 83 houses on the market. So you're looking at about a 4.9, basically a 5-month supply of
in
homes
that zip code.
in that zip code. That's a I don't want to say like a healthy market, but you know that's definitely solving the supply issue, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In 34769. So,
and then we go on to 34771, and this is quite shocking. We only had we had 43 houses that sold, and of that single story, 20, about half and half, 22 were single story, 242.68, and 2 stories, 21 of them at 209.93.
Wow. So that brings your month over month averages down about 1.7%. So that's kind of right in line, I feel like. And then your year over year averages are up like 0.5%. So again, I think it's just kind of holding steady in the 34771 zip code. And for your median days to contract, now this is only for your resale homes because again, a
lot of new construction going on.
A lot of new construction over there, and those will sway the numbers. So your median days to contract is 85 days to get under contract and 132 to close. So you're looking at like 4+ months.
Wow.
To get closed in the 34771 zip code, and they currently have a 7.7 month supply, and that's only with what's listed in the MLS. So you know how when builders. They'll list a handful of houses in the MLS, but not every single property that they have. So you have a pretty decent supply right now in 34771. And I'm curious if that's going to impact any of the other numbers, you know, moving forward.
Wow. So let's go on to 34772. We had 26 homes that sold. Of those, 18 of them were single stories at $223.88 price per square foot, and we had 8 2 stories at $191.23.
And so that one, month over month, you're down just about 1%, but you're up 3.3% year over year. So again, I think that's another zip code that's basically just kind of holding steady, right? You know, it's kind of staying right where it was. Your median days to contract is 61, so about 2 months to get under contract, but days to close is 106.
Interesting.
So I'm guessing that there's some multiple contract type situations where maybe one buyer can't close, you go back on the market for a couple weeks, and then you get under contract again. But that's close to 4 months, 3.5 months to get closed in 34772, and they have a 9.7 month supply.
Wow. When did that happen?
Well, so I was going to say, I think what happened is, because if you look at it, even in 34771, there were only 40 some odd homes that closed. Right. And same in 34772, 26 is not a lot for them.
No.
So I think when you look at what's active versus what's actually sold, that gives you your absorption rate, right? And so right now, because we didn't have very many closings in January, the absorption rate is pretty high. So I don't know.
Notice that I do that weekly post on my Instagram, and I'll do the weekly report, and every week it's like how many more listed, how many went under contract. The under contract number is getting smaller and the listed is getting higher.
Right.
So that makes sense.
Right. It definitely feels that way too.
Yeah.
I've noticed that at the trend coming up on yours. So I'll be curious to see what happens for the rest of the year.
Yeah. So now we have 34773, which is a sleepy zip code, and we only had 24 houses that sold. Of that, 16 were single stories at 207.29, and 2 stories, there were 8 of them at 191.26.
And so this zip code, you're down technically month over month about 6%, but year over year up about 3%, 2.82%. So, again, one of those zip codes that it kind of seems like it's bouncing, right in between where it's been for the past year or so. You're looking at a median days to contract of 90 days. So it's 90 days to get under contract, but 169 to close.
Wow.
So I think, again, we must be dealing with like multiple contracts unless we're, accepting a large amount of, contingent sales that have longer closing dates. But 169 days, what is that? That's just over 4 months, right? Mm-hmm. So, some time. So definitely take that into consideration, right?
It could be more than that, 5, because 5 times 3, 150.
Right. Yeah. So more than 5.
Well, more than 5.
Wow. So, but it's on a good news, I guess, if you can say. Again, there is quite a bit of new construction in 34773, so the number's probably a little bit diluted. But you have a 5.3 month supply currently. So,
well, since we're in 34773, I always like to do the Harmony Market Report.
Yes.
Okay, so in Harmony, we have Harmony, Maine. We had only a total of 9 sales. That's it. 2 of them were condos in Ashley Park, and the average price per square foot came at $157.38. Then we have the new construction, which has townhouses. That's Harmony Isles. There were only 2 that sold. They came in about $190 price per square foot. Onto the resales. Resales are really hurting because they're competing with the new construction. So we only had two resales. One was a single story at 164.76 price per square foot, and then 172.41 was your only 2-story that sold. Then we move on to the 55 and older. I don't like to forget those folks. And then we only had 2 sales out there. The average price per square foot was 171.91. And then we had a custom home that sold on Cap Prior that came in at 168.13 price per square foot. Then we move on to Harmony West, which generally they have a lot of sales, and they didn't have as many. You only have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so you can get the full report, the link to the website to see all the full reports on Harmony.
That's crazy. Definitely a different market out there. It seems like 2025. It'll be interesting to see what happens like long term throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
If there's any changes. I think a lot of people are just kind of waiting to see what happens. So that leaves, last but not least, for sure, is going to be our vacant land parcels. So in vacant land, we only had 8 sales, right?
Only 8 sales, and the biggest one was $1.3 million on Leon Tyson Road. Mm-hmm. Everyone. So 7 of them were cash and only 1 conventional. Interesting. Mm-hmm. But the one on Leon Tyson, that was a 7.28 parcel. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I looked at the map really quick right before we started this, and it was like right in between subdivisions. So I'm sure that it's going from being And
actually, it listed for 1.3 and sold for 1.2. Mm-hmm. But not many sales going on there. Interesting.
Yep. I think are we running out of land finally? It feels like it.
Not according to the meeting I went to this morning in Osceola County.
Okay, but in seriousness, have you ever seen how big Osceola County actually is?
I know.
I know we live in our little piece of the world. It's on the east side, and right at 192, we're up towards the top, right? But I drive down, to visit family in Fort Myers, and you can drive for an hour and a half before you even get out of Osceola County. Like you're on the road forever getting down there. So there is still a lot of undeveloped land. I just feel like it's south, right? Mm-hmm. Or were they saying, are there little pockets that I don't see within the...
There's a lot of growth. That's all I can say. My fingers couldn't type quick enough to everything they had to say, but it's interesting. I will tell you folks who's out there listening that, and I'm going to do a reel on this, Kristin Scarborough was at one of the people that were speaking, and she was saying how important it is when you get your trim notice for your taxes in August. That is your moment. If you have a discrepancy, you want to complain, you need to call her down at the office, because once that November bill comes out, it's done.
That's it.
So, sometimes your taxes jump up dramatically and you might be, well, what the heck's going on? And when you get the trim notice, it said, this is not a bill.
Right.
And so I think people just throw it aside.
Right.
I know I do.
That's also a really good time if you look at it and you're like, no, that sounds about right. These are going to be my new taxes. That's a good time to start putting some of that money away for your escrow shortage that you're going to get
yes.
in the coming year, because that seems to be a problem that happens.
I had one on our townhouse in 5 Oaks. I was short almost $500 on my escrow. Wow. And it was tax. It wasn't insurance.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Thankfully.
Too bad I didn't read that trim notice in August.
I know, but I guess to that point though. So like, is she saying that you could just fight the fact that you don't want to pay more taxes, or no? You're just saying if there's an error.
No. It wasn't really necessarily about an error. I mean, I'm sure it was. That's one part about an error, but basically she was saying, if you really like, how is this even possible? Like, call her up and, I'm sure she'll explain, but, people have disputed their tax bills based on the value that the county gives them. Right. So yeah, but you can't do it once the bill's out.
Right. And I wonder if, like, for instance, because I think that happened a lot. A lot of people weren't aware that, like, what was listed in the house, on a house, say the previous owner had bought it in 2010, right? And so they were paying taxes on that low rate, and you could only increase the value of the home a certain amount unless you make major improvements and get reassessed, that sort of thing. So now the new buyer comes in and they think they're going to be paying $1,200 a year because that's what the other guy was paying, but now the house is reassessed and it's 4 times its worth. Mm-hmm. Because it was based off of the sale. Like, I wonder if, like, is there, and this would be great to, like, have her on at one point, but, like, if there's a point that's like, well, you accepted the value that we gave you last year, now you can't go back and fight this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I won't get into that.
I'm just curious.
But that was interesting for me, because being in the business for a long time, and you also, I just thought, interesting.
That is interesting.
I do the same thing. I look at the trim notice and go, okay.
Right.
And throw it.
Can I be honest? I mostly look at the trim notice for the CDD.
Oh, okay.
Because, like, I figure, what am I going to do about the rest of the taxes? Like, they are what they are for the counties. Yeah, exactly. And we're in the county. We're not in the city, so it doesn't hurt as bad as, sometimes when you're in the city of St. Cloud, I feel like those go up. But the, the CDD is what I usually look for and just see, like, make sure. Because I actually had that when we first closed, our bond was paid off at closing by the builder, but they still had the bond on my tax notice.
Interesting.
So I ended up getting a check back from the CDD.
Oh, good.
Because of it.
Good.
But
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but people in my neighborhood had no idea, and I had to go tell people, hey, make sure you look at your tax bill. If you got billed for the bond, you need that money back, like, because it should be satisfied. It was supposed to be recorded that way, and it wasn't. So, wow. Anyway, I saved myself whatever it was, $1,800.
That's good. That's a nice shopping check.
Yeah, exactly. No, who are you kidding? I put it in the account for when the escrow shortage came out that year because they were like, hey, your taxes shouldn't have been this much. Anyway, all that to say, thank you so much for joining us again for another great episode of Discover St. Cloud. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can also check us out online.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the above. Any social media, you can find us all, or you can call us at 1-844-St. Cloud, that's STCLOUD, or you can give us a call at 407-953-9118.
Amazing. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.